Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to the Hip Hop Citizen live stream special report. We are going to be talking this evening about everything that's been going on and how it's hip hop related. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to have their voice heard and speak on what's going on. You can see us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that like button, follow. Share the stream. This is where we want you to call in and make sure that you have a chance to discuss with us what we want to discuss with all of you. We're going to be talking about hip hop's role in protest and the movement that's going on today. We have been seeing the feeds, we've been monitoring everything, and we're going to make it music related because that's what this channel is about. But we're also giving voice to the other hip hop citizens that want to participate. My name is Diva, and these are my views. I'm your host for tonight. We're going to bring in Architect 7, who is your co-host.
How's everybody doing?
We're going to give y'all a chance to get in, share the stream, make sure you're letting everybody know that a discussion is happening. We're going to be framing this around hip-hop, the celebrities that are starting to finally come out and discuss everything that's going on. And if you want to discuss it with us, we're going to be posting a link on Facebook and YouTube so that you can participate, and we'll have it around the bottom of the screen in a few moments as well. What we want to do right now is honor the ones who have lived their lives and remember their names, because they are more than just the event that took their lives. We're going to observe a moment of silence for them, about 15 seconds, because of course dead air on a live show is not always a good thing. But during this time, if y'all want to pray, if you want to meditate, put energy out in the universe, whatever it takes for you, just breathe in and out. We want to say their names because their names are important, and then we're going to have those 15 seconds. So I'm going to take it all the way back to Tatiana Jefferson. Say her name. Breonna Taylor. Say her name. We're going to take it to Ahmaud Arbery. Say his name. George Floyd. Say his name. So join us for 15 seconds. We're going to start the clock right now. So thank you for observing that moment of silence for us. When people do that, it's just for them to be respectful. That's just a human thing, to want to have that moment to reflect on what's been going on and what brought us to this moment in time. A lot of updates have happened in the last week, in the days. It's a moving target when it comes to this story. But we do have facts and evidence summary. We're going to try to put out as much of the true information that we've managed to gather between our team as much as we can. And let's mention the rest of our team here at Hip Hop Citizen. We do have other members of our panel. We have Dialect 718. Don Juan the Mac is going to be in the green room with y'all, stirring the punch and making sure the ice doesn't melt. And at some point, you may also hear from another team member. David Simonism may drop by. But it's such a difficult topic. It's hard to say what anybody wants to talk about. We're going to free flow with y'all as much as we can. When you see the link, please feel free to call in. Just a couple of housekeeping notes, because you're coming in. You got to abide by our rules. What we're talking about is, please keep it respectful. We are talking about someone's death, and we want to make sure that we do that. When you call, you're going to be put in the green room, and then you'll be brought on live. And please remember, we reserve the right to boot you. If you're just being out of pocket, if there's just something that's just not palatable, yeah, you're going to be on blast immediately, because this is our show. So be respectful about it. So here's a summary of the facts and updates that we have so far. Architect, if you have anything or you know anything that's been going on, let me know. If you have corrections for what I'm about to say. George Floyd, a 46-year-old resident of Minnesota, born in Fayetteville and out of Houston, was across the street in his vehicle from a grocery store that was alleging that a forgery had just taken place. That store called the police to the scene and let them know the description of the person. They say passed them the counterfeits. And when the police went outside, they observed George Floyd in his vehicle, went directly to George Floyd and began speaking to him. When we look at surveillance video that has come out since then from a restaurant that was also across the street, we see that George Floyd was in compliance. There are a couple of times when he was out of camera range, but we see that he was detained and walking away with the police to their SUV. But then at some point, they do see that he started to physically resist. This is when other officers arrived on the scene, and we see that George Floyd went down. A 17-year-old girl started to record, and bystanders started to gather as George Floyd was held to the ground by 3 men with an officer on top of him with his neck compressed under his knee for 5 minutes, where he was still responsive and speaking, an additional 3 minutes when he was unresponsive. EMTs arrived on the scene, did a cursory aid, and took him to the hospital. At the hospital, he was pronounced dead.
So he wasn't dead on the ground like we saw in the video, huh?
This is the story that they are giving, that he was pronounced dead at the hospital, but the world has seen the video now. So that's why people have broken it down to those 5 minutes that he was still able to speak. Those last 3 minutes, he was unresponsive.
Okay.
Police reports.
I'm not understanding, from what I'm understanding, the different stories that I'm getting, it was forgery. So it wasn't forgery. This was a counterfeit.
It was counterfeit bills that were being passed, and they were accusing a gentleman that fit the description of passing them. And the police came out and were saying it was forgery. Now, when they get their story straight, of course, we'll update. But that's the charge that they were trying to give him.
Okay.
And that's why they were interrogating him for it. Well, because at a grocery store in that neighborhood, I'm not sure they're taking checks. So I don't know if you can call it forgery. The story is still fluid in that regard. George was pronounced dead at the hospital. And then the story that's come out since is that bystanders and protesters immediately started circulating the video. The protest began. His family was informed and retained the services of, I guess these days he can be called civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump. They demanded an investigation. And 4 days later, Derek Chauvin, the officer that you see in the video, because the car is blocking the other two, was arrested and charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter in Minnesota. What I like to explain is that those charges are actually winnable. Third-degree murder in Minnesota.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but so what about the other 2 officers that were on the man's back? So we're seeing one angle.
They have not been detained yet. And the officer Tao, who was holding back the crowd and trying to keep people from reaching, because at one point you see a bystander like hesitate to go get Chauvin off of George's neck, and Officer Tao, who you see in the video, basically is running crowd control. Okay. So they haven't arrested the other 3 officers. Everyone was fired immediately. So that's the first action that was taken.
Okay. It's not enough.
And it's not enough. So people are still waiting for the other 3 officers who were culpable, because in total, from another angle of a video that's circulating, 3 officers were holding him down. And I want to talk about the fallacy of if you can breathe, you can talk. And just briefly, that's not the case. When someone is compressing your lungs and sitting on you, kneeling on you in your back with your chest to the ground, you are unable to expand your lungs to take in air. So you are literally speaking with your last breaths.
Well, I do know there was a few martial arts trainers who actually train police officers basically saying it could take a 25-pound-year-old child can kill somebody by sitting on the back of the neck. So imagining a grown ass man with his knee to the back of the neck, I mean, we know what the end result of that's going to be. But
Yeah, we all know that, but this is what they're coming up with. Um, the protests began immediately, but then in the meantime, things turned to rioting because there have been proven now on video and by eyewitness testimony that there have been agitators in the crowd, there have been provocateurs in the crowd who have incited the violence, who have incited the looting, incited the property damage. We have videos of a St. Paul officer who was tearing up the auto zone with an umbrella and a painter's aspirator on.
right, and then well, that looked like a police issued mask, but we'll
Right.
go with that. But then there's even, I guess, videos of pallets of bricks being placed in the street. I don't know where those come from, but being that there's no construction around some of the sites that were being shown in some of these videos, is kind of peculiar to me. But
It's good to see that people are aware that there will be agitators and they're making use of, film. This was always going on. It's just now there's cameras everywhere. And so people are taking the time to seek these people out and say, this is not us. We're not doing this. These people are coming in from out of town, out of state even. Most of the arrests that are being made of people that were just opportunistic troublemakers, basically.
I think
Um,
that's what's
yeah.
frustrating me with all this. When I'm listening to other people comment, they're asking why they got to burn down this and why are they damaging the neighborhoods, but they're not looking at the layers of it, right? So they automatically, there's this broad stroke being thrown on everybody that's out there protesting, thugs and vandals, but nobody's looking at the intricacies that are going on, like what you mentioned, the guy going around busting windows dressed in all black, the bricks being in
Mhm.
the street. Nobody's looking at that. Everybody's looking at the picture that's being painted of these protesters. Look, man, you can't keep your knee on the marginalized, but for so long before the anger and rage is going to blow up. And once you start playing on people's emotions, you don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. This is born out of oppression. This is born out of not being heard. The system wasn't built for us, so we're not able to use it for our benefit. And so, the rage of the people that are coming up, this is the end result. And there are people that don't like that. There of all shades that don't like that idea. But I'm not going to be the one to tell people how to express that. We don't need anyone to tell us how to express our feelings. If they're your feelings, they're real and valid. And you have a space here to talk to us and discuss everything that's been going on. We're going to get into the music aspect of it and the celebrities that are coming out, even private companies that are coming out in solidarity. It's even an international presence, which is a beautiful thing to see in support of a man that may have never even left this country. And yet there are people around the world who are just as upset as if they saw it on the block themselves. So
So,
there's a lot of support.
and I don't know that, and I'm not saying that it's not specific to this specific event, but I think it just speaks to the state of the world as a whole, but as far as power structure and how power is pushed down onto the people, basically power hungry individuals that are taking advantage of the have-nots. Because at the end of the day, we can say black and white all day, but it's at this point in 2020, it's really coming down to the haves and the have-nots when you see the
Mhm.
diversity in the crowds.
Exactly. There is a lot of diversity in the crowds. There are people that immediately came out in solidarity. It brings me back to the image of, and I told a friend of mine this, I saw the image, I had a reaction of these line of white women in front of a line of black people against a wall. And I
Right.
thought we're trapping them, but it turned out they were lined up protecting them from a line of riot police. And they
Yeah, I
took it
think.
upon themselves to put themselves in front of the protesters.
Yeah, I just have a problem with the generalization. Like I said, when we're using broad brushstrokes to, you know, I see, a lot of my friends, yeah, white people. And then you have the other side of the coin. But what about black on black crime? Like at the end of the day, like that's out the window for me.
Yeah, every time somebody brings up Chicago, it makes me want to scream. Every time I see somebody say, well, 13% of the population is doing 55% of the crime. I'm like, I'm happy that you know your percentages, but I need you to start looking deeper down into those studies
Right.
and look at it's about disproportion.
Right. Right.
But they have their talking points, so they're good. Um, at this point, the preliminary autopsy has been conducted. The medical examiner has determined that cause of death was not due to traumatic asphyxia or strangulation.
Of course not.
He's attributing it to lack of oxygen to the brain and underlying health conditions.
Bullshit.
So, of course, the family want his body back so that they can do an independent autopsy. And Benjamin Krupp put out a statement saying they are going to be bringing in noted medical examiner and civil rights advocate, Dr. Michael Braden. He helps with different independent cases. I forget the one that he worked on last time. It wasn't Trayvon's body. I think it was Michael Brown's body that he did an autopsy on, and he is going to be examining it more closely. But for now, the preliminary autopsy has determined that he did not die of the injury that we, the people, saw on camera.
That we saw, right?
Yeah, correct.
So millions of people didn't see that correctly, huh?
No, he is not attributing it to traumatic asphyxia, also known as in the neck.
Okay.
So I want to go back to the charges that have been brought against Derek Chauvin. The other 3 officers have not been detained as of yet. They've been doxxed, but they have not been detained. And I'm sure they're under protective custody somewhere. They've probably moved them all to safe houses because people immediately doxed them. And doxing is online. It means that you've given out personal information that wasn't readily available, and people are waiting for them.
Oh, yeah.
They've had to go into protective custody.
Okay.
The charges, go ahead.
No.
The charges that have been brought are 3rd-degree murder and also manslaughter. And in Minnesota, a 3rd-degree murder charge carries no more than 25 years. Usually they can serve 12. People are saying with parole, he can get out in 7. There's an additional charge of manslaughter. I wasn't able to find information about what that sentence carries, but manslaughter is usually 12 years too. If the jury is instructed to consider that as well, it could be a total of 24, but it would be determined by the sentencing instructions given by the judge and the judge that sentences him. What I was saying before about a winnable case, what happens too often, and if somebody's offended, I'm sorry, what happens is that prosecutors overcharge. They go on emotion, they want to appease everybody, and they go straight for 1st degree, or they go straight for homicide with intent. You take it to a jury and the jury acquits, because juries are always they are the X factor. They are the one that you can't determine what's going to happen. You don't know what kind of jury you're going to get. And so 3rd-degree murder in Minnesota is that you did not intend to kill this person, but you did kill them with malice. And so that is considered in the charge. And I encourage everybody to look those things up. Educate yourselves on what it means in Minnesota. Don't just Google 3rd-degree murder charge. It's in Minnesota, and they've also tacked on manslaughter. They said there are additional charges coming that they're investigating. The prosecutor's office did not inform the family, and so the family was very disappointed that it wasn't 1st degree, but I hope at some point they explain to them that the impact will come from a conviction. And Architect, I don't know if you want to speak to the idea of overcharging when it comes to these officer-involved killings.
Well, yeah, I just know from experience in my dealings, in my early dealings with law enforcement, they're definitely going to go for the higher charges. It's so that way they kind of cast a net and they pull the net in to get as much as they can out of it. So basically, shoot high and you're going to get something. But it looks like they went really low on this one.
They went really low. Minnesota is only one of 3 states, from what I researched, that has a 3rd-degree charge. And usually I agree because I was totally expecting at least second degree, because second degree, you don't have to prove intent. You just prove, bodily harm was a result of the person's actions. But they have a third degree charge, and I'm glad they went with that. They can always go higher, but it's easier to go higher than it is to come down. So you
Right.
got to look at it that way.
For a prosecutor, they're going to always highball. They want as high as they can go because it gives them a lot more room, like I said, to catch what they can back on the way down. So,
Right. I think the prosecutors here are looking at the long game, because this may not go to trial for 2 years, at minimum, because any defense lawyer worth their salt is looking for a change of venue.
oh,
They
of course,
immediately want a change of venue. They cannot get a fair trial in Minneapolis or the Twin Cities.
you already know
And so,
they won't be able to make it into
right,
the house.
I'm sure they're going to have him in a flak jacket and a helmet, just bringing him in and out. They may bring him out in the bag. It was funny to me how they didn't perp walk him when they took him in.
Oh, they'll never do that.
In privately. No one knew that he was being arrested. They took his mugshot. He made $500,000 bail.
Of course.
And the Fraternal Order of Police and the police union are in support of all the officers.
I think that the arrest, while on the face of it, some people can cheer, yay, but that's just an arrest. That's not a conviction.
Exactly.
And I'm sure he wasn't even handcuffed.
I mean,
They
Curtis
probably
were
like we're swinging to pick you up.
So he got a police escort to take his mugshot and then went home. So, or undisclosed location. Because like I said, people are still looking for all of them. As of right now, the other officers have not been charged. Everybody's been fired. And in Minnesota, they are going to be looking for a change of venue. And Minnesota is a huge state. I encourage you to look at a map. And if I'm thinking of the right state, because the Midwest is tough as far as geography, I think they have an upper peninsula. If these guys are looking for a change of venue where they think they'll get a friendly jury, if they take it off the mainland, it'd be hard pressed to get a conviction. Like, I see them trying to go to one of the four corners of the state, and if they go down by South Dakota or if they go the other direction, those people probably haven't even heard about it yet. I don't even know.
Probably side of a mountain right now at this point. I'm telling you, I live in a rural area. Okay, I am in Virginia, out in the Fredericksburg area, and for the first time in my life, and there's a lot that we can go over as far as what I've dealt with out here, but they are marching in Stafford County. They are marching in downtown Fredericksburg. Manassas, Virginia, basically got violent last night. And I'm telling you, like, these are things that and as long as I've lived in Virginia, I don't remember anything like this happening. And I'm driving as I'm coming here to do the show. I left my cousin Jean's house and I'm going through an area, if anybody knows the area and is familiar, of Lake Anna. Lake Anna is the country. There were individuals standing at the food line in Lake Anna with Black Lives Matter signs and white people. So I'm just saying, this thing is expanding larger than anybody ever imagined.
This has reached a worldwide audience in an age of 24-hour news cycles and, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This immediately went worldwide, and protests were held in solidarity in several cities around the world on Saturday. It was a beautiful thing to see. U.S. embassies in several countries drew protesters because people were angered by the death of George Floyd at the hands of a white police officer. In Berlin, thousands of Germans gathered outside the embassy chanting Black Lives Matter. A protest about racism drew thousands in Toronto, Canada, and their Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, referenced Floyd's death directly. In Mexico City, there were drawings and flowers in support of.
I don't know. Did she drop off? You there, Diva?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that, protesters in Berlin have come out chanting Black Lives Matter in front of the embassy. What they're doing in other countries is going to the embassies and consulates and having their protest there. In Milan, Italy, they had a flash mob of people chanting "I can't breathe" in front of the US consulate. The African Union Commission has strongly condemned the US actions and the actions of the officer. In France, they're having a black vest movement. There were yellow vest movements last year for their protests against their president. Now they're wearing them black in solidarity. The Dalai Lama has spoken out against this issue. So to me, it's one thing for people to just watch it on the news and, point fingers at America and say, you guys just can't get your shit together. It's another to see the protests and solidarity of other people in other countries. London, they've been
You know,
having their marches and protests, and
you know
see
what?
that a man that probably left here, go ahead, has captured people's attention.
No, I just have to say, and we have the damn nerve to go around telling every other country how they need to be acting. Is that like, does that not bother you? You know what I'm saying? Anybody out there, does that not bother you that here we are policing a world and telling people how they need to act, and now this situation brings out what it brings out. And it's not like this is the first time this has happened. It probably won't be the last time, but we like to sit on our high horse and tell everybody else how to act, and then here we are again.
Again. And that's what people are tired of. They're tired of the pervasiveness of this action. Like it keeps happening back to back to back. If it's not a mod, it's Brianna. If it's not Brianna, it's a Tatiana. If it's not a Tatiana, it's Amadou Diallo. I remember that. And so what has changed
And
in
I know
that time?
another thing too is we just have to be mindful as well that these media outlets also like to stoke the flames as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They really like to make it a point to always point out the black and white aspect of things. And we have to be mindful how far we carry that as far as from our emotional standpoint. And that, that goes for everybody that's watching, these media outlets. You have to be careful how far you allow your emotions to get involved, because that's what they're preying on.
That's what they're hoping for. You were making good points before that when you start to really dig down, this becomes a class warfare. This becomes about who you are in the hierarchy of where you live. And so people keep saying in comment sections, because I've waded into the cesspool of many a comment section this weekend, and people are saying, well, the usual, all lives matter, we're all the same race, we all bleed red, red, da da da. And they're saying that, don't fall for it. This is what they want so they can induce martial law, new world order, Illuminati. As soon as I start tipping over to the Rothschilds and the Illuminati, I kind of come back. But it
But you
doesn't surprise
you,
me.
you
The
can't you can't you can't discredit that, because see the issue is that very quote, conspiracy theory, was created by the very people that don't want you to know what the left hand is doing versus the right hand. When you're talking about the Ludlow massacres back in the days with the coal miners that were killed off because they realized like they were getting ripped off, and they started to protest. They were
Mhm.
killed off at the direction of a Rockefeller. And then once the population found out that that was the case, that's kind of like where you get the way the news media gets bent. What they did was, in a newspaper, they spun that massacre into basically a coal mining accident. And
Mhm.
that's way back in the day. So that is almost like the seed that was planted to be able to manipulate the mind. So I for me, I'm not going to say that I believe every single conspiracy theory, but it's really wild to me how things that were considered conspiracy, and it just kind of gradually goes along, and then it opens up, and then the truth comes out, and it's like, oh shit, they were calling those people crazy back then, but now all of a sudden you open the book now and it's the truth. So it's like, that's a fine line to walk.
It is. And I mean, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that you're not being followed. I just try to really, be analytical about everything. And if I dig down and can't find what everybody considers their own credible source, I'm just kind of like, okay. But no, I can't discount that 2 years ago, the idea of an agitator or agent provocateur just blending into the crowd and causing trouble
Yes, sir.
didn't seem right to me. But now they're capturing it on video, and now I see. And now
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I kind of was on the fence before, but wow, people are really out here just doing their thing to cause trouble. So, yeah, there's
Indeed.
something to it with proof.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know. I just look at it, the line, they're really trying to push a wedge into things. And that's why I'm just saying, like when we started down this rant, just be mindful of what you're digesting, man. Our diet don't only consist of food, it also consists of what we're being, what we're listening to and what we're seeing as well.
What you're feeding your soul and what you're allowing your mind to take in. These images are not easy to see. It's a lot of information. It can be information overload. It's physically and emotionally draining. And
It
so
is.
sometimes you just want to detox and step away from it. We're at the half hour mark. We want to welcome everybody. If you're just tuning in, this is Hip Hop Citizen. I'm Diva Views. This is Architect 7. What we're discussing tonight on Sunday's special report is the latest issues and spate of officer involved shootings and killings, how it is affecting the nation and the world. And now we want to go ahead and bring it in at this point to see if you guys want to discuss it with us. You should have a link on Facebook and in YouTube because we want to hear from you. We want you to call in. We want this to be a discussion of not just two talking heads, but we also want you to have your say. Tell us what's happening in your city, how it's affecting you. What we're going to do right now is segue into what the topic was when we were marketing this, and that's what is hip hop's role. Now, hip hop is based on politics. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, we had the infighting with the crew on how to address it. And me, I go balls to the wall. I'm like, let's attack the situation, because I believe that's the only way that we get through it. We don't get through it by, tap dancing around and tiptoeing around these issues. We got to dive right in. We got to go for it. And I grew up with people who stood up for what was right. The KRS Ones, the Public Enemies, the Brand Nubians, these are the individuals that brought it to the forefront. And so it is a responsibility of hip hop to stay revolutionary in what we bring to the table.
That's how I'm feeling about it too. And I came up, in the same system. We're old heads. We remember when it was, Public Enemy, when it was Professor Griff and Flavor Flav was the character that brought everybody in, but they stayed for the message. I remember those artists being the ones who were conscious rappers before we had a phrase for it. Because hip hop was all about telling the story of the street, of your hood, what you were mad about. And yeah, it started out with a couple of parties and some turntables and things like that, but then we saw it was a vehicle where it's almost like spoken word to music. A lot of people have described it that way.
But
So
we
what
kind of
you have, go ahead.
carried over. We just kind of carried over the legacies of like the Marvin Gayes and what have you.
Right.
The messages of Martin Luther King. Those were kind of the cloth and the fabric of what we're built on.
Exactly.
The
And hip
unifying.
hop took it, right. Hip hop took it and just like put a stronger beat for it, came with a harder message. And then that message got even harder in the 80s, early 90s. You had the Reagan administration really putting pressure on the inner cities, on the prisons, and making sure that everyone of a certain color was suffering some way, the poor even. And so then we started seeing like NWA, Ice-T,
And they even
Dre.
them up. At that point, they even tried to shut them up. And I'm at this point, I'm wondering like if maybe there was a hit out on them at some point. I mean, maybe I'm going too far
Now the
into it.
FBI investigates people they consider agitators. Like they had a file on MLK, they had a file on Malcolm X. So I don't doubt that.
Yeah, yeah. So and then I wonder. There you go. Yes, Gabriel. Yes, totally, man. And that's exactly why we formed this show, because we're not seeing that these people step up. And then when they do step up, it's almost like, all right, you want to wait till the wave is up before you jump on it.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, you're
And
gonna stay
mm-hmm.
in the mansion, but then we'll see you when all this stuff clears up about all the money you got and throwing money. all over the booties in their videos.
Right. And I think that's what people are feeling right now. They're feeling like anybody that tries to jump in March, anybody that tries to jump in right now and be a part of the movement is disingenuous. They don't feel like you're being real. You're like you're being 100, or you just want to jump on the gram and show. Ariana Grande joined the protest in LA, and your girl posted a picture of herself with a mask on the ground before she got out the car and marched with the protesters. I find that very trite. I find that very like almost insulting.
Gabriel.
Is a what? Is an indirect grandfather?
Indirect.
Gabriel, don't be trying to put him on the Mount Rushmore.
Right. Now, and I say this. I had a conversation yesterday with a buddy of mine, Bolo and Aro from Woodbridge, who was actually the ones that were putting me on that Manassas, Virginia was getting crazy. And I explained to them, I said, I'll take the individual that loves hip hop and what it stands for. That's not always shooting to see how many units they can sell over anybody that is following a wave or a trend. And exactly. So at this point, I think some folks have made so much money off of this, they're scared to lose it. So they're gonna keep quiet. They don't want to lose that Pepsi sponsorship.
You know what? You are segueing into a perfect point. So some hip hop artists are coming out and finally speaking. We are seeing their presence begin. One of the first ones to say something was Beyonce, which she doesn't usually put herself out there. She and Jay kind of move in silence when they do things with scholarships and donations. But she put out an Instagram video and shouted out a young man's change.org petition. That petition, last I saw, was sitting at 7 million signatures.
Wow.
And I encourage everybody to look for that article. We saw that article on hiphopdx.com. Shout out to them. They're a nice media news source. And they had the link to the change.org petition, and they had Beyonce's video. She was shining and, glistening in her blonde and everything, but she made a video, which she rarely does. She speaks through her music when she's trying to say something. Eminem is saying that he is encouraging fans to speak up against police brutality. So Eminem is saying something and standing in solidarity. But
he's
to Architect's point,
no, he's always mentioned that. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I was segueing into what she said because it was a really good point. I'm segueing into now heads like T.I. and 2 Chainz talking about Atlanta. So Atlanta was burning. Literally, they were attacking the CNN building. Now, I heard they were attacking the CNN building because there's a police substation in it. I can't confirm, but they definitely were trying to bust up the bottom floors. T.I. came on to a news conference with the mayor of the city, and he formed his lips to say that Atlanta is like Wakanda. This is sacred, and stop tearing it up. That's a paraphrase, basically, but he invoked Wakanda and compared it to Atlanta and said, stop burning everything. 2 Chainz got on Instagram and was in his house, comfy, and talking to the camera about, please stop looting, please stop burning our community down, please stop this. Turns out everybody in the comment section was calling them out because, oh, by the way, don't you have businesses in Buckhead? By the way, don't you have real estate over here? When everything was contained in Minnesota, everybody was boosting everyone. Yeah, we're behind you. We are right there with you. Soon as it started to spread, oh, this isn't the way. We have to be peaceful like MLK. Love to trot out MLK. So now all of a sudden that it's affecting their money, like you said, now they got something to say.
I'm not particularly a fan of the people that throw in questioning, why are they burning this up? And to a certain extent, I do get it, right? But Target's going to be okay. Target's going to rebuild. Target's going to do whatever they got to do. And I'm sure they got a lot of money from this last stimulus and all that. But it almost as if the conversation shifts from the actual issue. Now you want to go into why is Target burning down?
I'm not looting Sephora. Why are you guys looting the Icebox? Why are you, taking plasma screen TVs? I saw a political cartoon, of course it was conservative, that showed a city skyline burning in the background and a black man holding a plasma screen TV saying to a little white boy, oh, we're looting and burning the city so that you can have justice and freedom in the future. You're welcome. That's what people think.
Yeah. And that, I
That's
mean,
what they think.
when you're marginalized and you haven't had nothing and the opportunity seizes itself and emotions are running high, you don't know what to expect. So it's easy to throw the blanket across the whole, everybody that's protesting. But it's funny to me how they're like out there calling people thugs, right? But if they looked at the camera, they want you to believe like it's only one shade of person out there doing this. If you look at what's happening, there's a lot of white people out there. So you might want to start
They
re-guessing.
were the first ones I saw everybody coming in and out of Target. Like,
but the media is drawing the narrative as if it's just one type of person. And that's why I say we got to be mindful of what we're digesting. If you look at the image, just like they told us he died at the hospital, and you're looking at the images and you're witnessing it in front of your eyes. But they tell you that you're not seeing what you're seeing.
Don't believe what your eyes are telling you.
It's bonkers to me. Absolutely bonkers to me.
Now that the celebrities have like tagged on to it and come out, it's going to be a matter of the people just analytically thinking and critically thinking for themselves. So somebody like in the poster and the flyer that we put out for this program, you're listening to the Sunday night special report. This is Architect 7. I'm Diva Views, and this is Hip Hop Citizen. We're all about hip hop and the socio-political involvement that it has. It's always about the music, then it's also about the message. If you're tuning in to us, we want you to call in, have a discussion. The links are below, and the links are also on Facebook and YouTube. Give us a like if you're enjoying the discussion. We don't want to be just two talking heads up here. We want you to participate and have your opinion in the chat, talk to each other, comment, share the stream. We want this discussion to continue because this is not a moment, this is a movement. And in order to move, it has to have momentum, and we want it to continue. So the flyer that we had about the event talked about hip hop and where are they in the midst of rage, because this is rage we're seeing right now. And yes, it's a very strong emotion to have, but like Architect said, it's coming from somewhere, from the marginalized, the disenfranchised, the people that hip hop spoke to and spoke about in the very.
I want to throw something out there, and the reason why, because a lot of people, again, I mean, even you guys joke on me about tinfoil hat, this, that, and third. So I was lucky enough. I don't know if it was lucky, but so I dealt with television, major television, twice. Okay,
Architect is a star.
One was Lorena Bobbitt trial, and then I was also on the Ricky Lake show. All right, and when I was on the Ricky Lake show, I vividly remember when they called to have me on the show. The topic was one thing, right? But when the camera started rolling, they totally switched the topic. And oh, by the way, the questions that you see people asking, there were people with cue cards feeding questions to people. Okay, so that's what I witnessed. So at that point, I knew what you see in front of a camera, there's more outside of that square that you're watching. You know what I'm saying? I got to see the intricacies. That's just the Ricky Lake show.
Which I used to love, I'll admit.
David Simonism, how you doing, bro?
Yeah, all right.
For instance,
how's everybody doing?
All right. For
welcome,
instance,
welcome.
To my point, right? I'm standing here. You see that nice blue light behind me? Look at that.
Yeah.
See that? You never knew that was there, but it, makes me look good. You know what I'm saying? The light shine on, works out well.
Okay, so we have Gabriel coming on the line with us. Welcome. We got David Simonism that just joined us. I'm Diva, that's Architect. Gabriel, go ahead and speak your piece.
Well, I was going to say, you guys are like long distance kinfolk, same hip hop era perspective. And yeah, this is an interesting day in particular, because as I might have posted 99 years ago today, Tulsa jumped off.
Yes, sir.
So it's very ironic, about karma and how things are, circular, always been there. So, yeah, but you guys are speaking truth to knowledge. One thing I'd like to lastly say real quick is emphasizing what we need out here is media literacy, because we've become such a image oversaturated society. Anybody can put some stuff together and put it out there, and with the right spin, people think it's truth. And
Yes.
with the rise of deep fake videos, that's
Yeah.
going to continue to get worse.
Hey, don't
And I
talk
think-
about that. That's
yeah.
conspiracy according to some.
Right. Yeah. I got my aluminum Kango over here, so I'm good.
Please. Don't let the waves get you. Mr. Simonism, do you have a question for Mr. Tolliver?
Denzel Washington says, if you don't read the news, then you're uninformed. If you do read the news, you're misinformed. So we're left into a position where our media is no longer a source for knowledge. And
True.
if you're not experiencing it yourself, then you're pretty much going to be left in the dark.
True. And I had an opportunity to go to journalism school from 2015 to 2017 at UC Berkeley. And, the journalism field was considered in some circles like the fourth estate. And peering behind the curtain, it was very interesting, because journalism is really, for a lot of it, it's still very privileged.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tolliver, you're breaking up.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's my internet connection. Can you hear me
I
now?
lost him.
We don't want to lose you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Just to hear.
Can you? Okay. So I was saying that, the fourth estate is still very much an elitist institution. And newsrooms are still lacking diversity across gender and identity. And it's really the editors that shape the stories that people are reading or being pushed out.
Yeah.
Right.
Those things still have to be addressed, and it's always, hand wringing. Oh, we like to find journalists and stuff like that. But if you don't have meaningful diversity in your personal life, how can you even talk about diversity? That's seriously. So,
and for me, and I want to touch on this while we're here. So I'm not on paper, I'm not black or white. Okay. I'm Hawaiian and Puerto Rican. All right. So I've walked a life where when this stuff happens, I'm caught in the middle. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I do walk on the right side. I'm always going to pick the right side. And the only reason I'll say that, the reason why that came to light for me, young age, was because when I had dealings with law enforcement in Virginia, I wasn't white.
Yeah.
I literally, when I caught my first and only charge, big charge, they filled in the paperwork for me. They put black, and I had to correct them. They were booking me. At that point, I knew that whole ounce of blood, that whole theory,
One drop,
like that was real. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But then there's people get angry on both sides of the fence, and I've dealt with the black side of the anger, thinking that I'm white. You know what I'm?
Right.
So I've walked this path of like, this is a serious issue. Because I'm basically trapped in the middle. I was telling the crew the other day, I was like, man, when I go out, I'm thinking like, I don't know who's going to act a fool.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Tolliver, I just want to say welcome to the show, Mr. Gabriel.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you for having me.
I just got a simple question though. What's wrong with protecting property? What's wrong with being a police officer? What's wrong with? What's the problem with that? And I'll stand by and listen to you guys comment. But what's wrong? These cops, they do a hard job, and 99.9% of them are really good cops. I'm going to drop off and listen to your comment.
Go back to the green room. You let the punch get water.
Let me take a stab at that. I lived up in Brooklyn for almost like 20 years, until I went out to Oakland. And one thing, and I have some family in law enforcement, but one thing that always comes to mind is like, why does somebody want to be in law enforcement? Now, for a lot of people, it's a good job with the pension. And if you stay with it long enough, you get your pension. So it's really interesting, if we could poll these law enforcement officers, to why did you come into this profession if you're not about the people,
Right.
That part.
And then, I remember having a conversation with the Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams a few years back when we had some robberies in our Brooklyn neighborhood. And I asked him about the residency requirement for New York City cops. And he said, look, man, I've been pushing for that since I don't know when. But like, for example, up there in Albany, they're not going to have it. And, rest of New York, for the most part is just, it's a white, rural country state. And with the exception of New York City.
It's huge. Yeah. And that people think
Yeah.
that it's more than Manhattan. It's more than even Poughkeepsie. There's a whole other rural farmland part of New York.
Yeah.
So are you speaking to, that's kind of the conversation that I've had with a few friends also. It's, you have individuals that really don't know the culture. And when you go into different areas, it's essentially a different language that you got to speak or deal in.
Right. Code switching.
If you're putting people in an environment that gives them anxiety or fear because they've never been a part of anything like that, and it's so different, it's just a reaction to kind of have a fear of something that's different, unknown, you're looking for these issues.
Right. And also, too, like in New York and New Jersey, you basically got suburbs that are basically cop and fireman enclaves. Ain't nothing but cops and firemen that live in these, like some of these like bubble burbias. And they have a mentality like it's us versus them. And it's going into like a deployment, and there's not enough what I've been exposed to in the military is civil affairs. And there's not enough of it. It's not enough emphasis on putting.
They call it here community policing. They want you to be of the community. They want you to live there, know the people, patrol on foot. They want to go back to that. But like you said, most of those cops are from out of town. They claim they can't afford to live in the city they police. Now that's true. I know they say that a lot here in Charlotte. I'm in Charlotte, and they say that they can't afford to live where they patrol.
And see, you know what? That's a city council thing. They can make that happen. They could make breaks on real estate and everything else like that if they wanted to.
With the mortgage.
Right.
Yeah.
What part of are you in, sir? Because I know David Simonism would be interested to know.
Oh, me? Oh, I'm calling from Cleveland, Ohio.
You're from where? I was talking about your origins or when you were in Brooklyn.
Oh, I was in Brooklyn. I was in Brooklyn. I got to New York in '89, and I was living in Brooklyn, Fort Greene from '92 through 2004, and then over in Prospect Heights until 2015, and I headed out to Oakland.
Are you?
Well, we had. Oh, I'm good. I joke. I mean, I got food, butter, guns, and ammo. So starting out won't be none. So, but I'm in shelter. I'm staying in place.
They give me a mess because I tell all of them. I said, "Hey, man, strap them up. Get strapped up.
Yeah.
Not the only
legal.
The only necessity."
Yep. And like Dave Chappelle said, if enough people of color legally started carrying guns and forming gun clubs, gun laws would change.
Because they did when the last time it happened. Who remembers?
That's right.
Mulford Act. Who remembers the Mulford Act? Raise your hand.
Oh yeah. Sacramento. Yeah. Yep.
So
Black Panthers.
That is how it is. You have to have this movement continue in order for it to affect change. There have to be impacts. This has to be something they remember, and it has to have momentum.
Yeah.
David, welcome back. Did you have anything for Mr. Tolliver before we let him go to enjoy the rest of the show?
No, I apologize for the technical difficulty I had during your call-in, sir. And
no
just
problem.
one statement towards Diva saying that I'm a Brooklynite as well. The Brooklyn Heights section of Brooklyn, for those that don't know, is where Dr. Cosby and Claire Cosby lived on that TV show.
That's right. Right. Yeah. Brooklyn Heights.
so much
Yeah.
for calling in and being
Well,
with
thank
us,
you.
expressing your opinion.
I
Please share the
appreciate.
stream, let people know that you've been
Yeah.
talking to us. We definitely appreciate you.
Oh, no doubt. I like I said, I got to give a shout out to my friend Catherine Stenta. She told me about y'all's show. So
Oh, Catherine!
yes, yes. So I'm a fan. I used to follow the late Combat Jack. That was a personal friend of mine. And we wrote a book together called Bling. So this is the type of show that I'm gonna be following you guys, man, because
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. We
there's
appreciate
something out
that.
there.
Thanks,
No
Catherine.
problem.
Thank
So
you, sir.
all right.
God bless, and give my
Yeah, same
regards
to
to
you.
Miss Stinter.
Okay, we'll do. We'll do.
We love
Right.
Catherine. Shout out
Okay.
to her, all our regulars that you're listening to, that hang with us in the chat. Please continue to talk to each other. Please talk to us. You saw Mr. Tolliver called in to be a part of the show. We've got David Simonism. We've got Architect 7 bringing in their perspective on hip hop's role amidst the rage. What we're discussing was that a lot of the celebrities and hip hop people have started to come out now. J. Cole was protesting in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which was the birthplace of George Floyd. He was down there. Rihanna has already demanded answers regarding George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. Even Dr. Dre has come out the works to speak on it. Drake, who else? Run the Jewels is offering to offer Run the Jewels 4 for free in wake of George Floyd's death. Killer Mike, he did speak in Atlanta. I don't know if you guys saw that when Killer Mike was up there.
And I'm not even going to front. For me today, when I woke up this morning and started seeing all the craziness, it's hitting my backyard. I'm telling you, I'm in the suburbs and people are marching in the damn suburbs at this point. And I got emotional because there was a little bit of a mixture. It was excitement. It was joy because looking at the crowds being so diverse, that hit my heart. You know what I'm saying? And then there's a fear. There's a fear. It's like, I got kids that are going to have to go out in this world and do, go to work and do the things that they got to do too. So
any woman that has black sons right now, they are on Facebook just in fear.
I got a lot of mixed emotions, man. I'm not going to front. And then what was it? The gentleman in Flint, Michigan, the officer who instructed his officers to put down the batons and the helmets, and he walked with the protesters. That right there made a grown man cry. I'm not even going to lie.
There are a few state police stations, police chiefs that are coming out, white shirts that are coming out to speak directly to the protesters. I believe it was the police chief in Atlanta that got basically on the ground and in crowds to talk to people, to hear them out, to let them yell at her if they wanted to, so that they could see her. There were, I think it was Miami, where the police chief and another white shirts kneeled. They did a Kaepernick kneel outside the police station. There was another, police station that, like you said, let their officers march in uniform. So
that's not the problem.
The
problem is the anarchists that are in these groups that are causing most of the rioting and looting. They are doing the spray painting. They're spray painting a representation of Black Lives Matter, and they have nothing to do or associated with the protest for George Floyd. And this is where the issue really has to be combated.
Yeah.
The groups, they have to call them out. They have to point them out. They have to go to these authorities and these riot gears and have these people arrested. And the only way they can do that is by separating themselves and not being involved in any of the anarchy behavior, looting, destroying property. I just seen J.R. Smith, a former NBA player for the New York Knicks, Cleveland Cavalier champion, just walloped on some young man for breaking his glass. The young man was Caucasian and he was black. So if the lines are that blurred, where we don't know the injustice and where it begins and where it ends, then it's all a big nothing. It's just people happy to be outside their homes. And really, Mr. Floyd's death is in vain.
Right. Agreed.
Absolutely. We were discussing that earlier about the Asian agitators They are, white. They were out there, like you said. I was telling an architect about these two women in LA who were tagging a Starbucks with BLM. Remember when they were, spray painting it, but they were completely in black, had their faces covered, and everybody surrounded them and started filming. And one girl called them out, "Hey, this is not BLM sponsored. We're filming you. Why are you here? We didn't tell you to do this." In another city, they're telling other people, like, "We saw you break those windows. Like, that wasn't us," and pointing them out. So they're doing exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, but see, the thing, and this, I'm going to keep saying this. The issue is people keep watching the media, and there's this broad brushstroke being thrown across the protests as if they're the one. Like, I hate to say it like this because somebody said it like this. I'm sure there's some good people in this crowd.
Right. I there's
hate
no other
to use that term, but
yeah,
the truth. So when you're watching the media, they want you to believe, number one, that it's only one shade of person that's out there, regardless of what you're seeing on the screen. I mean, you're seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're running, these thugs and all this other shit. You got to pay close attention to that, man. What your eyes are seeing is what they're seeing.
Okay,
exactly.
I agree with the fact that there is a broad stroke with the paintbrush across the protests, but that's because the protest has no identity. With MLK Jr., there was an identity of nonviolence. And with Malcolm X, there was an identity with by any means necessary. These protesters or these youths out here marching, they have to create an identity. And that means they have to take a step back, get together, maybe online communicate with one another and say, on this day we will march. Because as long as they're already ready, available to be in the streets, people are going to use them as scapegoats to create their own type of violence and anger.
So where's the leadership?
That's
now you want to talk hip hop?
Leader.
There you go.
There's no leader right now because everybody wants to be in charge and nobody wants to be told what to do. So in the days of Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, when he had the perm and was big and Jesse still didn't have any sidekicks I knew about, they were the ones we turned to. They were the ones we listened to. When they said march, we marched. When they said show up, people showed up. But now that, this is a newer generation where everybody thinks they're special and everybody should be able to have a turn to lead, there is no one person. And so that's why we were saying that's when you turn to hip hop. That's when people, the celebrities are their leaders for some reason.
Has anybody ever taken the time to think about it, right? Let's think about this, right?
Yeah.
So everything kind of builds up, 10, 20 years, and everything that's happened in the past builds up to a moment now, right? The past and the present are very much still together in one street.
History doesn't always repeat itself, but it damn sure can rhyme.
So, right. And so my thing is this, right? So in my 45 years of being on this planet, the same issues that I remember seeing in the 80s, the early 80s, the late 80s, they still exist now, right? So then we've also been told the stories from our parents, right? And then them from their parents. And so here we go as we go down the line and we keep talking about this march, right? We keep talking about all these marches and all this, right? At what time, like, marching isn't enough, right? They get ridiculed for that, right? You kneel, now all of a sudden you're non-patriotic. Like, so what do you think the next step is? What do you think's going to happen?
They want you to work within the system in order to change the system, even though the system wasn't built for you. And that's why they're looking for voices like a celebrity. They're looking for, Drake. They're looking for Beyonce. They're looking for, those people. And that's why we wanted to bring it to a conversation of hip hop. Where are the protest songs? Where are the leaders? Where are the ones that are supposed to be, the touchstone for what the culture can turn to say, you know what, this is the banner we're going to fly. And this is the banner we're going to be under.
Yeah.
Dom on the Mac is joining us.
Yeah, Diva Architect, just a quick question. A lot of people have been in my inbox, and there's been a lot of comparison to slave rebellions versus riots and looting. My question for you guys, is there a time where looting and riots are okay? And I'll drop off and I'll listen to your comments. Thank you.
I'm not going to say it's right or okay, but I'm going to say, what the hell do you expect? What do you expect? You're telling every time, like right now, for instance, the protesters are getting called thugs and all this other stuff because of some provocateurs that are going in, breaking down buildings and burning them and doing whatever they're doing. Right? You're telling them they're non-patriotic for taking a knee during a national anthem. Basically, you're telling them shut the hell up. After a certain amount of time, you're putting so much pressure and you're shaking up that Pepsi can. You keep shaking it. You pop the lid. What's going to happen? It's not just going to pour out nicely.
So they want it done in an acceptable, palatable way that doesn't disturb their comfort or their safety. I can't say that a riot is the right way because Gabriel mentioned the Tulsa race riots that burned down Black Wall Street. That wasn't okay. So I can't say that burning down a mom and pop bodega is okay. But at the same time, it's like Architect is saying, like, what are you expecting at this point?
Right. And that's what
do you want them to do? Like file a petition to be on the community policing board so that they can be the oversight committee. What has that done?
It's really easy to sit in your cookie cutter home, right? And go to your cookie cutter Walmart and live your little cookie cutter life and talk about why are they doing whatever they're doing. It's so easy. It's so easy to do that.
And that's where people are. They're in the safety of their homes, out in the burbs, out in the bedroom communities, away from the city, and not tuned into what they don't understand. I tell people all the time in these cesspool comments, just admit that you don't get it.
That's it.
And accept that you will never get it.
And then the fail-safe is always, what about the black on black crime in Chicago? Or
if one more person brings up Chicago, I swear. We're talking about at the top of the hour. I'm Diva Views. This is Architect. This is HipHopCitizen having a Sunday night special report discussing hip hop's role in the socio-political climate that we're in right now. We're going to stay on for a little longer because the conversation is just going so good, but eventually we got to depart. But we're bringing it around to the music and the celebrities that are involved in the culture that we call hip hop and what it means to us and what we want hip hop to do at a time like this. Like the people who matter, who are not rich, who are not celebrities, they're the ones that are raging and upset and tired. They are tired of being tired. What do you want your celebrities to say? What do you want them to do? And where are all the protest songs? In our flyer, I saw we had a picture of J. Cole, and we mentioned before that J. Cole was marching in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We had Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar is considered a conscious rapper, very critically acclaimed. People really do appreciate his lyricism and flow. And when he had go ahead.
No, certainly, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to run all over anybody. He did a song with Beyonce called Freedom. And when they performed it, I think it was the Grammys. It was electrifying. And Kendrick's part is what everybody really tuned into and paid attention to. Donald Glover, also known as Childish Gambino. I think he wants to be Donald Glover now. I think he dropped Childish Gambino. His hit, This Is America, came out in 2018. And that was the last time there was really a touchstone song that everybody could point to and say, you're right. This is our banner and this is what we're under, and hip hop has spoken. The young lady in the photo is known as Stella. She's a Latina rapper, and she was featured on the song Immigrants, We Get the Job Done. That's on the Hamilton mixtape soundtrack. And she did a great job. She speaks also on those things because there is, it's not a boys club. It affects us all. And a Latina voice can be heard just as easily as mine or anybody else's. But what do we want, guys? What do we want hip hop to do in this moment? Who should be stepping up?
There ain't but one man at this point that I feel that has a voice that'll ring the bells. And I think he stepped to the NFL. Apparently he called the mayor of Minnesota. It's Jay-Z. He hit you with the 40.
Oh Lord, David Simonism, what say you? David.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, can you? Well, I know that Dave Stein would have an issue with Jay-Z since he won the battle. What? That we had in another live stream. But I think that Jay-Z is the only one that is on that would be considered on their level to speak to them because of money.
But
I mean, because of money. If he was just Sean Carter, they wouldn't be worried about him.
But then the issue with that is, then you have other people that are like, oh, he's a clown, he's a sellout because he's gotten to the heights that he's gotten to. So, you know,
right.
It's like,
you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
I think David's having some technical issues.
It's like, oh, we're sorry, Dave. We really want you to be involved in this. And we want everybody to call in. We want everybody to speak up, talk to each other in the chat, talk to us. We want this to be an opinion show where you feel that you are participating, not just listening to us. You can always share the stream, share the link from YouTube. Make sure you're letting everybody know that this discussion is important and that it's taking place. And we want to know, like, where are the protest songs? Because I've been waiting for people to put out more songs like This Is America and Freedom and all the other songs that speak to the movement that we're trying to keep going. Now, This Is America was impactful, definitely because of the video.
Well, you know, our guest from Friday night, he sent me a song that he did when the Michael Brown situation went down. It was actually pretty good.
Okay, shout out to Nico the Beast.
Yeah.
You're talking about his
I forwarded it over to you guys so you guys could check it out. But I think it's not getting the light that it deserves.
Right. And I mean, I think what's sad is that I was asking you guys too, is it that the mainstream artists are scared? Are they worried, like you said, about the Pepsi sponsorships and the money?
That's the only thing I can think of. Because what else you got to be scared of? You all right? You good? You got your, you know, based on what I'm seeing in some of these videos, you shouldn't even be worried about money.
Right. I mean, the underground artists are the ones that are having to carry it right now. Like you said, like, you know, Nico the Beast, if we've got underground artists or artists that don't have a deal, artists that are independent, they are a little freer to just go off completely and say what they got to say without, you know, somebody from A&R coming in and trying to have a meeting with them about it. But if you have a platform, and this is why people look at celebrities, if you have a platform that's reaching 100 million people on Instagram, if you have a platform that's reaching 7 million people on Facebook, that's when people want you to say something because they know your message will travel with the speed of sound and light.
So Glenn,
like, your message will go out.
Glennis made a comment, said, what about J. Cole being a representative? I mean, I'd be more than happy to have him step up for the younger heads and speak on it. I mean, his music is centered around the discussions that we're having. So
J. Cole, like we said, is participating in the protests in Fayetteville right now. Gary is mentioning that Questlove has been playing some songs for the climate at the moment. I mean, the Roots, they are a perfect example of not conscious rap, but I'm just saying they've always been around. Like, they came out, I think I remember, around the neo soul movement.
Yeah, they had their moments. They've had albums that have addressed that.
Absolutely. And, you know, I remember, I think it's the album that You Got Me came off of, was addressing something like that. I think Things Fall Apart.
Yeah,
that album.
All right, yes, sir.
And they really dug into it then. And the Roots, you know, they're a backing band now. Everybody seems to be doing solo projects, but they are still steeped in that culture. They are still participating actively. But for somebody to take on that leadership role, it's a lot on their shoulders because now everything is hyper scrutinized. And everybody's got something to say. So J. Cole stepped up. Who's to say he wouldn't just be weighed down with that responsibility?
I just don't see. So when we talk about like Martin and Malcolm and people that actually stood up, right, amongst the sea of people and said exactly how they feel and exactly what they feel it should be, that's where we're lacking. And not just from a hip hop perspective, but I'm saying overall, like, who's going to stand up on that stage and fill up that park full of people? You know what I mean? Like, we don't see that.
Okay, before I'm tossed off again, because obviously the government is patched into this live stream of consciousness from hip hop citizens. Bottom line is the moral authorities that hip hop has to come from the elders, the Grandmaster Flash, the Melly Mel's, the Kool Hercs. These are the individuals. They may not be popular in today's music, or they may not be popular to today's youth. But those are the individuals that know how to get across a message because they built a $1 trillion business off of their intellect and their ingenuity. So you have to go to these sources, and you can go to these colleges and get these professors. Don't have to necessarily been a poet or a musician. It has to be someone that can gather and explain to the youth what is at stake here. There was an interesting conversation that was caught on Instagram where there was a 46-year-old man, a 31-year-old man, and a 16-year-old. The 31-year-old man was telling the 45-year-old that this is not the way to go because at 45 and 15 years later, 46 and 15 years later, he's 31, and the same a protest that he's at with the same animosity and anger. So he was trying to tell the 16-year-old, the 31-year-old, that in the 30 years difference between the 46-year-old and you, there has to be a change. And if you are not the one that's going to be able to create change, then it'll never happen. So he was trying to tell a 16-year-old he shouldn't be there trying to do the same thing that they did for the last 50, 70 some odd years since Jim Crow and segregation.
Solid.
If we got Gable Tolliver back on the line. Hey, Mr. Tolliver, what else do you have to add to the conversation before we start to wind down?
Oh, okay. I had to dip out real quick. I just, the music artists, they got to step up, especially now. I mean, I don't know who can be the next PE or NWA, but they got to be dropping some message-oriented music. They got to get it out there, and also too,
don't you
media
think
literacy?
Like when you're talking about those artists coming out and dropping it, during our time they were up front and center. They allowed it.
Yeah.
Until they witnessed what it was creating.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The industry was getting the dollars, but they didn't realize the gems that were being dropped in the new generation and mass of people that was being created and born at that time.
Yeah, right. So we're not out of the woods yet, and I kind of shudder to think what this week will bring. We got the COVID.
Mr. Tolliver,
Yeah.
David Simon here.
Yes.
Have you marched?
Watch what?
Have you marched?
Oh, have I marched? No.
Yes.
No, I haven't marched down here in Cleveland.
Okay. No. I'm not saying in this particular protest. You seem like to be a senior. I was wondering if any Vietnam War, segregation, or anything you protest.
You dated me way too old, dude. Don't let the gray hair fool you.
My apologies.
I'm 53. I entered the Army at 41 and went to Afghanistan. So I've seen war, and I even marched with the Amadou Diallo, and I got footage from that.
Wow.
So yeah.
Good.
So
thank you for jumping back in, Gabriel.
Thank you again for having me. And when's the show on? Every Sunday?
Friday Night Live takes place every Friday at 11 p.m. for right now through the summertime. It's the same panel. We have additional members, Don Juan the Mac and Dialect would be joining us. And in that show, we just cut up. We have anniversaries, birthdays, topics of the week, news and gossip. So definitely join us for that too. We'd love to see you.
Yeah, I'll come back up for Friday. God willing, one day at a time. It's crazy times out here. So, but yeah, right. Best to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, we're going to start winding down. We're going to have, we've had some good conversations. We've made some great points. It seems like hip hop's role is still important. People want to hear from them. I don't think it's a matter of shut up and sing, shut up and play, shut up and dance. It shouldn't be. They're citizens too. They have every right to speak their opinion. Beyonce has every right to speak her opinion. Even T.I. has a right to speak his opinion. Their job doesn't preclude them from being able to participate in this movement.
And
At the same time, we just don't want it to be disingenuous.
I also want to say that this all starts from the ground up too. We can't just depend on some superstars that got a little clout to create change, because the real change, it happens on the ground. It doesn't happen with a man in the White House. It happens on how we deal and treat each other on a daily basis as human beings. So we can talk.
It really is a grassroots movement.
Yeah. So we can talk about whoever's in the White House, but it doesn't seem like anything has changed. And I don't think that's going to change until us, the people that are always, picking up the pieces, start treating each other a little better overall.
Absolutely, the hip hop citizens are the ones that have to be a part of the movement and not let this just be a moment. We encourage you guys to go out and find the protest songs, find those independent artists, find those underground artists, support them, have them listen to the message, go to the clubs, listen to the live music when we're all able to again, and see what their message is. Support them and what they're doing, because they may get discouraged that nobody's listening. They may think nobody hears them. Let them know you're listening as a hip hop citizen, and encourage them to have their voice and share it with others as an artist. We want everybody to give their socials out. Architect, where can the people find you to continue the discussion?
At Architect7 on Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook as well.
We have our colleague at David Simonism. I believe, what does he say? He's banned on Twitter.
Right.
He's on Instagram. And does Mr. Simonism have a Facebook?
He does.
So you can find at David Simonism on there. Go to our Hip Hop Citizen page. You can find our other colleagues, Don Juan the Mac and Dialect 718, that are members of the team when we do Friday Night Live every Friday at 11 p.m. We have a good international audience. They listen to us over on the motherland. They listen to us, in Europe. Thank you for the support, and we thank you for listening. I am Diva Views, broadcasting live from survivalist bunker in Utah.
Yep.
And what we want you to remember is that we are here for you with this discussion. And we're going to close out right now that we've done our socials, with an affirmation that I think is important. It came from Joanne Deborah Bryan. She went on to join the Black Liberation Army and the Black Panther Party and took on the name Assata Shakur. And she fought and was jailed and escaped and is exiled in Cuba. She knows what it is to feel the pain of a Black mother losing a Black son in violence. And I'm sure she's watching this, movement going on right here. And she might be saying to herself, the more things change, the more things stay the same. But she has an affirmation that she's written, and I want y'all to listen to it. I encourage you to go out and critically think about what you see in the media, what you hear, and take this away with you. We have breaking news that the National Guard was just deployed in, Cleveland?
Jesus.
We want everybody to be careful. You can be supportive without putting yourself in danger. You may not think so, but you can. It's called Assata Shakur's affirmation. I believe in living. I believe in the spectrum of beta days and gamma people. I believe in sunshine, in windmills and waterfalls, tricycles and rocking chairs. And I believe that seeds grow into sprouts and sprouts grow into trees. I believe in the magic of the hands and in the wisdom of the eyes. I believe in rain and tears and in the blood of infinity. I believe in life. And I have seen the death parade march through the torso of the earth, sculpting mud bodies in its path. I've seen the destruction of the daylight and seen bloodthirsty maggots prayed to and saluted. I've seen the kind become the blind and the blind become the bind in one easy lesson. I've walked on cut glass. I've eaten crow and blunder bread and breathed the stench of indifference. I've been locked by the lawless, handcuffed by the haters, gagged by the greedy, and if I know anything at all, it's that a wall is just a wall and nothing more at all. It can be broken down. I believe in living. I believe in birth. I believe in the sweat of love and in the fire of truth. And I believe that a lost ship, steered by tired, seasick sailors, can still be guided home to port. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Hip Hop Citizen to discuss the issues of the day with us tonight. We hope you'll join us again for lighter hearted topics on Friday. And if there's any other discussion that we need to have, you can join us again for the Sunday special report. We're signing off.